After nearly 6 years, the Fantastic Four First Steps has finally released, and I'm going to give my thoughts on it. Welcome to the Film Sphere. I'm Brian Hogue, and has finally released, and it's been quite a wild ride leading up to it, and I'm very excited to share my thoughts on this. But before I do, make sure you like, comment, subscribe for sure. I'm trying to reach 500 subscribers by the end of the year. I think we could do it. I believe it. I believe in you guys. But first things first, let's get into and a little bit of context. This was announced back in 2019 at San Diego Comic-Con with no cast announced and Spider-Man director Jon Watts set to direct. And it was have a bumpy road to get here from then. Jon Watts left the project to pursue other things, whatever he's up to. He just directed Final Destination. And Matt Shakman, director of WandaVision, was attached to the project. And that's when we started to hear things like, oh, this would be set in an alternate universe, or it'd be set in 1960s, 1950s. I think we originally heard it be set in the past, and everyone was like, oh, well, how have we not heard of the Fantastic Four? And then it was later announced that they would be in a separate universe, and there were so many casting rumors with this film. I remember for the longest time it was Adam Driver and Margot Robbie attached, and Rudy Pankau was going to be Johnny Storm, and the David Diggs was going to be the Thing. He was going to voice the Thing. I remember the casting moved around a bit. Like, it was Adam Driver for a while, and then I remember Matt Smith was supposed to be Reed Richards, and then Paul Mescal was supposed to be Reed Richards for a time, and then like Chidi from The Good Place was supposed to be Reed Richards for the time, and among others, there was a whole stream of casting until finally announced we have Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm, and the great Eben Moss-Bachrach as Ben Grimm, the Thing. And it was history, and our Fantastic Four movie is finally out, and I watched it last night, and I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was great. Hopping into this movie, spoilers by the way, we hop right into this new universe right off the bat, and we start off with a short scene of finding out that Sue is pregnant, and then a montage sequence, basically the history of the Fantastic Four and all the villains they've fought. And I thought it was such a good opening to the MCU, and it was similar to Superman early this month, where there wasn't a lot of baggage, I guess, to sort of introduce a lot of these things, and introduce like these villains and this origin story, and even like fully introduce these characters, because we know these characters and we're going to get to know them over the film, so it's so much more accessible that way. And it was so much accessible with Superman, and this just felt so accessible, and it had me hooked right in the bat, especially after that scene with Reed and Sue, because we find out Sue's pregnant, and you sort of see a lot of the character growth in this movie is with Reed and Sue. I'll get on to the other character stuff later in the review, but it's showcased so well in this first scene. You see that Sue's pregnant, and she immediately has this just like, I guess, motherly care. You already get to see that throughout the film. And then, especially with Reed, you see his excitement, but you also see him instantly fall into like calculating and thinking like, oh, I gotta do tests for this, and this. And you kind of all throughout the movie just see how much he's always thinking about all these outcomes and things to do and ideas to sort of project and whatnot, and he brings that up later in the movie, and that's sort of a problem between Sue and Reed, and I thought it was so well done. And going into the montage sequence, I loved all the astronaut flashbacks, as well as fighting off sort of the villains. We have like the original like comic frame of like Fantastic Four #1 with like the like monster thing. I thought it was great. Overall, great opening, fantastic opening. It was super duper good. Now, this is when we get into our character dynamics. We have the Thing and Johnny in the Baxter Building, and I loved the Thing and Johnny, and I wish we had gotten a little bit more character growth. And I guess I'll just go into this character stuff before I go into the rest of the movie, because I have a lot of pros of the movie I want to talk about. So I'm just going to talk about these two characters for a bit right now. With Ben Grimm the Thing, I think Eben plays him perfectly. I love the bear, so I just loved hearing his voice, and I love him in the kitchen, and I loved everything with the Thing. I do think he wasn't, I guess, focused on as much as he could have. Obviously, we have his like romance with Natasha Lyonne's character, or whatever that is, and I feel like they portray his sadness, and I guess the underlying sadness of the Thing very well in this movie, but it's only for certain scenes, and it's not ever really mentioned with like the other characters, except for a scene with Reed later in the movie, which I love. But it's not really an arc. There's not really any growth there, or there's not really any further exploration of that. Like there's just, you can just tell throughout the movie that there is this underlying sadness, that he can't ever be like normal, and that he looks like this rock monster, and it's all there. It's just, it's never really explored upon, and maybe we're gonna get it in the future, and I hope we get it in the future, because I love all of those like story arcs in the comics with the Thing, with him struggling with his humanity and a lot of themes like that. But here it just kind of felt like a sort of background theme, like, oh, when we flash the Thing, he's gonna be looking in the mirror, he's gonna be looking at old photos of himself, but it's never really touched upon in the movie for like the entire movie. And then on the side of Johnny, on the topic of Johnny, I always doubted Joseph Quinn. I thought he was not the right fit for Johnny Storm. I think that might be the case. Now, when you're thinking fit for Johnny Storm, I don't think he can play Chris Evans' Johnny Storm. I think Chris Evans' Johnny Storm is the Johnny Storm, and Joseph Quinn does a fantastic job for playing this specific version of the character. And everyone was sort of, I guess, critiquing online and crying online that this Johnny Storm wouldn't be the traditional Johnny Storm that we know, and he wouldn't be a womanizer, and he wouldn't be this hotshot superstar Human Torch that we've seen before with Chris Evans specifically, or even Michael B. Jordan. And I wish we sort of got that. Now, not in the way where like, oh, this isn't Johnny Storm. No, I like where how Joseph Quinn plays the character, and I like this interpretation of the character that is, he's smart, but he's not as smart as Reed. So there's an insecurity there, and he is still kind of a hotshot, but he's protective of his family. He's protective of Franklin, and he's still a hero at the end of the day. But I think we should have at least started off with a sort of traditional Johnny Storm, because by the time we get to the end of the movie, he cracks the code. He turns Silver Surfer, and he wants to make the sacrifice play at the end of the day. There's no really like, he didn't really earn that, because he was already that very same character at the beginning of the film. He was already the caring and smart Johnny Storm, who would make the sacrifice play, who would learn the language learn the Rosetta Stone for his family and turn the Silver Surfer. is the same character at the beginning of the movie that he is at the end of the movie, is what I'm saying. I'm saying it would have been a lot more, I guess, meaningful with his like sacrifice towards the end if at the beginning of the film he was sort of this wild card in the group that nobody could really depend on, and as the movie goes on, they can depend on him. He like cracks the code with the Silver Surfer, and he makes that sacrifice play with Galactus. So I think Marvel and Disney being a little afraid to maybe do that very traditional Johnny Storm at the beginning of the movie sort of cost Joseph Quinn a really, really good Human Torch arc to sort of have that redemption and have that dependability that the team wants for Johnny Storm. And I think that's the only negative with that character. Now, I love like who his character is in this movie. Like I love that interpretation. I just liked a little bit of build up to that interpretation as opposed to just this is who he is right off the bat. And I think his interactions with Ben are really funny. I think his interactions with Silver Surfer are really funny. He does a great job. I'm just saying this would have been a nice area to also include another like character arc, as opposed to we are very hyper focused on Reed and Sue in this movie, where we could have gotten a lot more growth with Ben and Johnny as characters as well, and as opposed to just Reed and Sue. But moving on to Galactus and what Galactus wants. No, Galactus wants Baby Franklin, because if you don't know, Baby Franklin is the Beyonder. He's a very, very powerful mutant. And I love all the Galactus stuff. Ralph Ineson has that bravado, that bass in his voice. And he came off as very threatening and very imposing. And what I talked in my out of theater reaction, one of my favorite parts of this movie is the sense of dread. From the point that we see Galactus on for the rest of the movie, so I think that's like 30, 40 minutes in. For like 30, 40 minutes in, for the rest of the movie, there is just this feeling of constant dread and fear. And it's done so well because we're not in our main universe. We don't know if everything's going to be okay. If this was the Fantastic Four in our main MCU, what would be like, it was the same with like Eternals. Like the Eternals not gonna freaking explode the universe, so the Eternals are gonna stop the Celestials somehow. It'd be the same way. Like Galactus comes down onto our main MCU universe, and we would be like, oh well, we're gonna stop him somehow because this is our main universe with all our heroes on it. It's not gonna explode. He's not gonna destroy it. Here, I had no idea. I didn't know if we were destroying this universe, if we were saving this universe. I had no idea. And that's what this new universe thing caters to so well, is that there are no expectations of what could and couldn't happen. And that's what makes it such a fun movie to watch, because it's set in this universe and it has those advantages. And it was just so good. And like, especially coming off this really, really awesome sequence after the Galactus like negotiation where Sue's going into labor and we all have to run back to the ship. Galactus and the Surfer are chasing us and we have to go through this black hole, and the visuals look perfect. Like, I know we hate on some of the CGI on Marvel, and there is some wacky CGI, baby CGI in this movie, but like that whole space sequence was so awesome. It was a mix of action and sci-fi, and there was so much tension and stakes in there because we're focusing on Sue going to labor. We also can't get sucked in this black hole. We have Galactus and the Surfer coming on us. It was such a well done sequence. So having that sequence before like Galactus is coming, we have to prepare, just even sets up the whole final act of the world like preparing for Galactus and finding a way to stop him was so good. And that was probably my favorite thing about the movie, is that it's really just like we're preparing for the apocalypse, and it was done so well. Now, getting into Reed Richards. I was hit or miss on Pedro. Now, I like Pedro. I'm not a Pedro hater. But he just didn't feel like Reed to me. But in this movie, he feels like Reed. He can play smart, he can play intelligent, he can play maybe a little bit arrogant and cocky. And I totally bought him and Sue together. Because Sue is a lot more of this, like, a lot more this like strong leader character than she is in other interpretations, and it goes a lot well with Reed, who can sort of get caught up in this sort of studying and scientific aspect of it all, where she can just reel it in and be like, hey, the family, the mission, and it works so well. And I like a lot of the hints to sort of Reed Richards' flaws, especially when it comes to like, oh, well, I'm gonna have to make the sacrifice play sometimes, because and then it's the only way. And I love that scene in the bedroom where he's just like, I have to think of the worst things imaginable so I can prevent them. And it's some of the stuff I love about Reed Richards, and it's some of the stuff I want to continue seeing about Reed Richards. And I honestly have no complaints about Reed and Sue, and that they were honestly some of the best character stuff in the movie, because we really didn't focus on Ben and Johnny as much as I wanted to, but with what we got with Reed and Sue, it delivered. It was so good. And overall, I bought Vanessa and Pedro as Reed and Sue, and I'm so excited for Secret Wars and Doomsday. And now getting into the third act. Now there's a lot of science mumbo jumbo to sort of get into, but overall still a great sequence. I mean, we start off with thinking, oh, we're going to teleport this Earth, and then the stakes are heightened when Silver Surfer destroys our portals to sort of do so, to sort of teleport the Earth. And then we realize, oh, we have to bring Galactus down here. So now Galactus is on the Earth now. And also great stuff with Galactus on the Earth. There's a lot of practical stuff, and the CGI also looked great. And I loved all I loved everyone sort of using their powers to sort of like stop him. So I liked like throwing like the oil on with the oil truck onto Galactus, and then Johnny lighting on fire, and then Reed like climbing up all the things. I love Reed stretching. Like I love that we got to use all that. I wish we got a little bit more, but I love all that stuff. And then we have the Galactus not going into like their plan B, basically not stepping into the portal. So now we have to like push him with like Invisible Woman's pushing him, and we have Johnny and Sting fighting them, and then Reed is like getting the machine to try and like work. And it's all just a really good sequence, and it ends with Silver Surfer and Galactus going into the portal. And I wish we had gotten like a little bit more dialogue with like Galactus about like what he wanted. Like obviously he gets like Baby Franklin, but like I wanted a little bit more about like what his plan is. But I assume we'll hopefully get Galactus in Doomsday with Doctor Doom. And overall, movie wraps up. The Earth is saved, but Doctor Doom is coming, and he's in the post-credit scene, and I'm very excited to see where this goes. But yeah, overall, I loved the Fantastic Four. I thought it was fantastic. All my negatives aren't like, it doesn't really bring the film down for me. So like I experienced all those negatives, but like a lot of the other stuff in the film is just so good that I can't give it a lower rating. Now that does take me from giving it a higher rating than it could be, because they didn't really use all their tools to their advantage. But the fact that the rest of the movie was so good and the negatives didn't bring it down too much for me, it was a win in my book. I'm so excited for Doomsday. I loved Fantastic Four. Go watch it. I mean, there's some really awesome sequences in this film. Go see it in theaters. Like, get out of your house, get out of your bed, and go to a movie theater. That's where you're supposed to be watching. That's where you're supposed to be watching movies, not on your couch, not on your phone. Dude, I hope you're not watching movies on your phone. Don't do that. Don't be in bed watching movies on your phone. Go to the movies. Like, go to your movies by yourself. Get a popcorn, get a drink, sit down, watch a movie. It's almost therapeutic. It's nice. Go watch it. But that'll do it for my Fantastic Four, The First Steps review, or is just First Steps. Fantastic Four, First Steps. Still a weird title, in my opinion, but that will do it for my review of 2025's Fantastic Four, First Steps. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Make sure to like and subscribe, and follow me on Instagram at The Film Sphere with Brian Hogue. And that'll do it, folks. Be good people.